Hey everyone, Sophie here. Before I start the episode, I just wanted to let you know that after 2 years and 100 interviews, I Love This Thing So Freaking Much is taking a break. I don't want to say that this show is done forever because I love making this podcast so freaking much, but I do not at this time have a plan for when it will come back. I encourage you, if this podcast has brought you joy in the last 2 years, to share it with a friend or go back and listen to your favorite episodes again. I have had so much fun learning about the people, places, things, concepts, and activities that make you smile. So until next time, be good to yourself, be kind to each other, and you'll hear from us again soon. Welcome to I Love This Thing So Freaking Much, a podcast about passion. My name is Sophie Katz, and today I am joined by Tova Katz, founder of Revel Hypno, certified hypnotherapist, creative high-performance coach, and award-winning multidisciplinary artist. Welcome to the show, Tova.
Thanks, Sophie. Happy to be here.
Happy to have you here. So here's how this works. Tova will have 3 minutes to talk about something that she loves. This can be a person, place, thing, concept, activity, anything she wants. Our only requirement is that she loves it wholeheartedly and wants to tell us why. Are you ready, Tova?
I sure am.
All right. Got my timer here. Now, what do you love so freaking much?
I love time abundance. So time abundance is a practice and a toolkit that I've developed. I use it in my own life. I teach it through my work. And this practice helps myself and others experience greater power, presence, and purpose each day to create a more spacious and joyful life, even as you are fulfilling your life's responsibilities and goals. It's an interdisciplinary practice, which I absolutely love because it draws on modalities of hypnotherapy, neuroscience of habit formation, time study research, high performance, and requires entry points of mindset, action, and belief. And this is a key part of what I love about it. So lots of people right now are struggling, maybe more than ever, with overwhelm, excessive busyness, and burnout, centering on that feeling of never having enough time, that like clenched, not enough time feeling. And I've seen lots of approaches that try to address this through only one entry point, and that is not ever going to work. So lots of people teach, let's say, time management strategies, which I consider action. And no matter how good the strategy, let's say someone attempts a time management strategy, around their scheduling, but they're not addressing the mindset of time scarcity, where they're constantly going around saying, I never have enough time, and thinking how they never have enough time. No matter how good that scheduling tool is, they're not going to feel spacious. There's no room in the mindset for it. And similarly, if you're working on a time management action tool, but aren't addressing, let's say, a deep underlying belief that your self-worth is tied to your busyness, then your subconscious mind won't allow you to stop being busy because it wants to protect your sense of worth. So mindset and belief have to be addressed. And there are spaces addressing mindset and belief that aren't addressing the action component, which is also essential. So what I love about time abundance as a practice is the way that it's able to and has transformed my own life and people that I've worked with is that it integrates addressing mindset, action, and belief to enable actual, real, and sustainable experiences of spaciousness and joy in your daily life. And the other thing that I love most about time abundance is the empowerment component. So I've discovered through my own personal journey and conversations with friends and clients that even the most empowered people can have a disempowered relationship with time. But because they relate to their lives and identities as generally empowered, it's often harder for those people to see the ways that they're perpetuating a disempowered relationship with their time and ultimately their lives. So through those entry points of mindset, action, and belief, time abundance practices helps me and helps others get free from that disempowered thinking, those habits, resistance, and underlying beliefs about themselves that they didn't even know they were perpetuating, in order to create an integrated and lasting sense that in each moment, all I do, I choose. So that's what I love about time abundance.
And that is perfectly timed. Thank you for telling us about time abundance today.
My total pleasure.
How did you first start to learn about time abundance?
I have always been a multi-passionate person, and over my own many years long journey of recognizing that how I felt as I was working on multiple projects at once, let's say, the difference between the times where I felt like I was really riding a wave and sort of like in charge and feeling in that flow versus when I felt like I was underneath that kind of like time scarcity, overwhelm undertow was not connected to how, let's say, full of a schedule I had. how many
Mm-hmm.
projects I was working on. That actually wasn't the link. So that was something I started to notice many, many years ago. And that was sort of the first clue into these multifaceted entry points of an experience of time abundance. And then I had another experience down the line where I was feeling very, very stressed and burnt out at a job and felt like I never had enough time for my creative practice and I was constantly exhausted. And I started developing some daily practices that actually involved doing more in each day. But because what I was doing was energizing me, because I was relating to it in a more empowered way, because of many of the components that I discovered through actually doing it, I ended up going from, let's say, a 60-hour work week and feeling exhausted and burnt out all the time to an 80-hour or 85-hour week. But because so many of those hours were creative practice, were practices that I developed that were really about connecting to my agency of what I found most fulfilling, I was not only less stressed and less burnt out, but I was also more rested and more energized. So that was sort of another clue. And then the last component that really brought me into the discovery of this was when I became certified as a hypnotherapist and started really getting into understanding how the subconscious mind impacts how we're relating to the goals that we have and the things that on a conscious level we're striving for. Through all of those, I started to notice this pattern more and more of people around me who were super empowered, really high functioning, who were constantly talking and describing this feeling of overwhelm and like they never have enough time. And that to me just got my curiosity going. I was like, there's something here. And so I started to do a bunch of research through my own sort of lived experiential experiment of my own life. And then also starting to look into time studies, starting to look into energy studies around high performance and starting to understand how different habits on a thought habit level and then an action level relate to each other. And through all of this, I started to develop this practice. And so it was really like many years of experience and study and research and my own journey and observing the journey of people around me that brought me to develop this as a practice.
It makes a lot of sense to me as you're saying it that what you fill your time with and how you feel about the thing that you're doing is going to affect whether or not you feel like you have enough time or have enough energy to do it.
Right, absolutely. And I know that lots of people have talked about flow state, and I think that that can really be used as an indicator, right? So like you can start when you start to pay attention to your own way of relating to different activities, then you're able to gear yourself toward what changes you might want to make so that you're spending more of your time doing things that bring you into that flow state. And that also gives you more energy for some of the things that maybe are important to you because of other goals, but that don't actually give you the same amount of energy as you're doing them.
Yeah, the things that you need to do, like to pay your rent or make sure you have food or make sure you're healthy.
Exactly. And I think the other thing that comes up a lot in this work and again in my own life and in doing time abundance work with clients is when it comes to those things that you just mentioned, those things that you feel like, well, I need to do this, right? And the difference between doing, let's say, a task that you don't inherently enjoy, but connecting to the thing that you do genuinely want and care about, that task is allowing versus connecting to the fact that you don't enjoy doing it and you feel like you have to is actually a very different experiential and even on a physical level, you're going to have a different energy level and emotional experience during and after, depending on how you're relating to it in the moment, even the exact same task.
Your focus on mindset and belief is really interesting to me a lot because I know from my own experiences, I have become pretty good at scheduling my time and making sure I get everything done. And I very, very rarely miss a deadline in anything. That does not stop me from almost constantly feeling like I don't have enough time or I'm not doing, like if I'm focusing on one task, I must be focusing on the wrong task. So when you were talking about that, it really resonated with me that all of the, oh, here's how you manage your time tools, all these action tools don't address the entire problem of feeling like you don't have enough time.
Yeah, absolutely. And what you just described, I think, is one of the most common experiences. And it's very frustrating because on the surface, it looks like those action tools should solve it.
Mm-hmm.
And so then even when you're really doing all of those things and you're still feeling that don't have enough time, sort of like clenched, stressed feeling, it can be really frustrating. And so that's why I feel like knowing that addressing those other components, once you recognize that, it sort of opens up this whole other possibility of an actual integrated experience that includes the action, but also goes deeper than that.
Do you have any starter tips? Like, say someone's listening to this and they're just realizing, oh yeah, I do always feel like I don't have enough time, even though like objectively I know like my schedule's fine. Do you have any starter tips on what's the next thing to do once you recognize that there's this problem?
Well, two things come to mind. I think one starter tip is really starting to pay attention to your thought habits. So starting to notice when you're reinforcing time scarcity thoughts, because that is really shaping how you're moving through your day in a lot of ways. Once you get beyond the action component, right? Like you're saying, someone who has a schedule that actually works, right? Which is its own thing that for some people does need to be addressed. I would say really noticing any time scarcity language. So for example, even the phrase, I don't have enough time, right? That's reinforcing an experience of scarcity. So what does it feel like to say instead, I'm prioritizing something else at this time, or I'm choosing to do something else at this time, so I'm not available for that other thing, rather than saying, I don't have time for this thing, which puts you sort of reinforces a disempowered relationship to both time and to your life. So that's the first thing that I would say as sort of like a very beginning way, starter tip, as you call it, into time abundance. And then definitely for people who want to go deeper, that's like a big part of the work that I do. So if someone wants to go beyond a starter tip, you're welcome to reach out to me, because I really feel that this sense of time scarcity and not having enough time and that sort of disempowered relationship is actually in the way of a lot of people experiencing more joy and fulfillment in their lives, even people who are externally very successful. I feel like this is a huge barrier. And I think that the world needs more fulfilled, joyful people in it. So I feel very passionate about supporting people in accessing their time abundance.
Yeah, I can tell. Is there anything that you don't like about time abundance? And if so, how do you handle that?
There's nothing that I don't like, but I can share something that's challenging. Time abundance is a daily practice. It's not something you do all the steps for and then just have. There are days where those time scarcity thoughts that have really, really, long histories in your mind come up, and you have to remind yourself that it requires daily engagement with these practices in order to feel time abundance. And so that's just, that's always hard, especially because we live in a culture that's very much about acquiring things. So like, yes, you do acquire these skills and you get better at these tools, but this isn't something that you ever stop doing. If you want to experience time abundance, it requires constant engagement in those practices. So that's that's something that's both something I love about it and it is a challenging lesson that I learn over and over again.
Tova, thank you so much for telling us about something you love today.
I loved telling you about it.
Excellent. And thank you, our listeners, for tuning in today. If you would like to learn more about time abundance or our guest Tova, you can find her social media information in the episode description. And don't forget to use the hashtag #LoveThisThingCast to tell us about the things you love. I Love This Thing So Fricking Much is a production of Through the Window Media. This episode was directed and edited by Sophie A. Katz. You can find us at Through the Window on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or Tumblr. That is THROU The Window at all those social media sites. Be good to yourself, be kind to each other, and you'll hear from us again soon.